Welcome back to the Mindful Presenter Truth Series. This is Truth 4. Truth 4 is there's nothing wrong with PowerPoint. There, I've said it. PowerPoint, whether it's PowerPoint, Keynote, Prezi, most visual aid platforms, software gets such bad press. There's nothing wrong with any of those. I've seen PowerPoints and all of the other platforms used brilliantly, stunningly, and I've seen them used miserably. There's been a phenomenon that's been around for a long time now. You've heard it. You've probably experienced it, been on the receiving end of it. It's got a name. It's called death by PowerPoints or death by bullet points. Keep in mind, they didn't call it pain or stress or discomfort. They said death. And you can understand why if you've been on the receiving end. But the truth is, there is nothing wrong with PowerPoint or any of these other platforms. It's the people and the way we use them that's wrong. We've evolved in a world where people, sadly and wrongly, have been using visual platforms as their script. It's nothing to do with their audience in terms of their the way they've set out to use them. They've used it purely as a means of remembering everything they have to say and a way of covering everything in terms of data and information through bullet points and text. And it ends up as this cocktail of disaster. It's horrible, but there's nothing wrong with it. You can use it beautifully. The truth is, PowerPoint and Keynote, Prezi, all those visual platforms, they were designed, the idea of visual slides, they were designed to be like billboards. So imagine this, you're driving down the road. You see this billboard, it's about 40 foot long. I don't know how high these things are. But how long do you have to get something from that billboard? As a motorist, you talk to any good marketeer on the planet, they'll tell you, because there's been research, they'll tell you less than 5 seconds. It doesn't do everything for you. You still want to then go onto the internet or go into a shop or make a phone call or do some research, but it's taken you to a place where it's had an impact and you want to know more. That's the power of billboards, which is why they're so successful. Slides are supposed to be the same. You have a slide that has an image, a relevant, compelling image, and a headline, a message, a title, not a sea of text or bullet points, that does something that takes your audience to a place where they think, wow, I want to know more. They've already got some level of understanding, but they want to know more. And then it's your job as a presenter to bring it to life, to give them the context, the detail, the information. Far too many presentations, business presentations, are just a sea of text and data and bullet points. It's a mess, it's a nightmare. And we work with some of the most successful, biggest, influential brands on the planet. And even the most intelligent, gifted, talented, creative professionals that we work with are still misusing and abusing PowerPoint and other visual aid software. Please don't do it. Less is more. If you have text on your slide, it's an instruction for your audience to read that text. It's an unspoken instruction. The moment text goes up, in whatever shape or form, if it's there, your audience will read it. The moment that happens, the instant that happens, they're reading that text, they're reading the slide, which means that they cannot effectively listen to you and your message at the same time. One of a couple of things happen. Either you're reading or the presenter is reading the text word for word, which is a huge mistake. It's the mortal sin of business presenting, because we're ultimately and simply just insulting our audience's intelligence. If we read a slide word for word, that's saying, you can't read. You're not saying that, but that's what it means. We're either doing that or your audience are busy reading the slide word for word, because that's what they do, and we're paraphrasing or explaining and speaking over the text. The human mind does not work that way effectively. It's a myth. You know what I mean if you've been on the receiving end of that. So there's nothing wrong with PowerPoint. There's nothing wrong with any of these visual platforms, as long as you focus on the purpose. Do you need them in the first place? If you do, what purpose do they serve? It's nothing to do with you, by the way. Every slide should serve a meaningful, valuable, tangible purpose for your audience in terms of reinforcing, animating, helping them to get the point that you're trying to make. please, let's help get rid of this horrible phenomenon, death by PowerPoint. It's been around for at least 3 decades. And I promise you, because I see it every week in organizations that I work with, you'd be surprised if I told you some of the names, so I won't. But it's still happening. But it doesn't have to be that way. There's nothing wrong with PowerPoint. Think mindfully and carefully about the slides that you're using and the impact that they're having on your audience. If you need help, you know where we are, mindfulpresenter.com.